It's Independence Day. It's a fun one. In college football, the independent has kind of gone the way of the dodo. There used to be a ton of independents, enough that you could have made a really badass conference if you decided to put the Florida States, Penn States, Miamis, Notre Dames of the world together. Somebody tried that and it didn't end up going very well, Big East. But we've seen more and more independents jump ship, join conferences, except for Notre Dame. Army's leaving the independent status. UMass is leaving independent status. UConn, I think, would love to, but hasn't. Liberty is no longer an independent. BYU, no longer an independent. And so I wonder, is Notre Dame the only school that can make independence work? Because for better or worse, college football has sold its soul to the TV devil to the point where that is the most important thing to college athletic programs in 2024 is how much TV money am I going to get? Regionality be damned, historic rivalries be damned, travel be damned. You have now a conference where schools from Los Angeles and the New York metro area are in the same conference. Teams in the Southeastern Conference range from College Station, Texas, to Gainesville, Florida, to Columbia, South Carolina, to Columbia, Missouri. The Big 12 now stretches from Arizona and Utah to Central Florida, West Virginia and Cincinnati. Everybody has thrown all of the things that used to make conference membership important to the wayside in exchange for guaranteed TV dollars. So when that's the most important thing, you need a gigantic fan base, a nationwide fan base that Notre Dame has that makes them a viable independent. Now, even Notre Dame, who spent 135 years as a true verified independent, now has a deal with the ACC to provide them games every year in its football schedule. Now, part of that is if you're going to try to be a member of our conference in everything other than football, you're going to pay the price a little bit, and our football programs are going to benefit from that. And Notre Dame has benefited from it as well. They've played Clemson when Clemson was a big-time program. They've got good games against Wake Forest, North Carolina, Louisville, etc. But are they the only ones that can make it? I think the answer to that question is probably no, because there are just a select few. I think, for instance, if Texas wanted to be independent, they probably could. Could Texas get a similar TV deal to what Notre Dame has? I think so. And I think it's somewhat similar for a couple of brands like Ohio State. Probably I waffle back and forth of someone like LSU, for instance, has a super passionate fan base, but I don't know that LSU has a nationwide fan base. And the same for somebody like Florida, Georgia, etc. And I think it matters more about how many people you can get to watch you rather than how good at this are you. Because there have been times where Notre Dame, over the course of even the last 20 years at their deal at NBC, have not been good. There have been times where they've been excellent, fantastic, and that's paid off. But there have been times where they have not been good, and people still tune in to watch. And that's all NBC cares about at the end of the day. But when it looked like the Pac-12 was going to crumble, and it kind of, you saw the signs of like, hey, this isn't. I thought, like, could USC be an independent? Could they work out a deal similar to Notre Dame where they're in the West Coast Conference for everything but football, and they play an independent football schedule? And I think the answer to that question is yes. Now, I don't think they're going to get the, whatever, $40-50 million a year that, schools in the Big Ten would get or Notre Dame would get, but somebody, whether it's NBC, and I think NBC is probably the logical spot if USC wanted to say. Now, they're never going to do this because they're in the Big Ten now. But if they wanted to, USC has a long-standing rivalry with Notre Dame. NBC is going to want those games on NBC. Plus, being on the West Coast, you can start an 8 p.m. game on the East Coast in prime time for God's time zone. And it's in the middle of the day for USC fans who people on the West Coast don't like primetime games, or I guess don't like night games. USC could have done it, I think. But I think USC's dependent on you have to be really, really good. You have to be early 2000s, Pete Carroll, Matt Leinart, Carson Palmer, Lendale White, Reggie Bush, good to get those eyeballs, because I don't think that USC has the national cachet that someone like Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State would have. But is Notre Dame the only one who can make it work? Because I think if, like, for instance, if Army can't make it work, if the United States Military Academy eventually says, oh, hell, we got to join a conference because this just doesn't work for us anymore. And I think for a lot of instances, there was a really great quote from Army's athletic director who said, like, our football program benefits from not being in a conference because we can go play games wherever we want to / need to go play games. If we recruit Texas, for instance, very well, we can schedule games against Texas State, UTSA, North Texas, UTEP, whoever we need to in that state to go play in front of recruits. If we recruit Florida, Georgia, we can go play Kennesaw State. We can go play Georgia Southern, Georgia State. We can go play whatever we need to go play. And also, we're playing schools who aren't consistently now preparing for our style of offense. Therefore, we've got a leg up on the competition. And so for all of the benefits that the school got from not being in a conference, they joined a conference because the benefits just flat out outweigh trying to do this all on your own. And there is strength in numbers. There is strength in getting a bunch of other like-minded institutions to pull in the same direction that you want to be pulling in. And so that's kind of the thought process in my mind is on this Independence Day, if Army, who really, really, really enjoyed their independence, can't find a way to make it work, if BYU, who wants to be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints version of Notre Dame, if they decide, you know what, it's better for us, not on our own, is Notre Dame the only one who can make it work? Now, I make no bones about it. I think that there are ulterior motives at play from the Big Ten, SEC. Somebody is trying to force Notre Dame into their conference, whether it's the ACC, whether it's whoever. And I think you might see this borne out in future schedules where I could see absolutely 100% the Big Ten and SEC making a unspoken agreement here of like, hey, let's not schedule Notre Dame. Let's make sure that their strongest independent non-conference games are against the ACC and the Big 12 because we don't want them to continue to skirt independence, to skirt being in one of our conferences, and still get high priority in the college football playoff. And so the easiest way to make sure that you can get that program, that, make no mistake about it, we can all sit here and bitch all we'd like about Notre Dame and their independent status and their holier than thou, we're better than you and we know it attitude. The Big 12, ACC, Big 10, and SEC would welcome Notre Dame in their conference ranks in a literal heartbeat if Notre Dame said, we're going to leave independence behind, we're joining one of you. They all would rush to South Bend with a pen in their hand, begging the Irish to sign on that contract line. But the easiest way to do that is to make the path to the college football playoff and the path to the championship really, really difficult for the Fighting Irish. And a way to do that is to give a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to each other to say, don't schedule them. Make their strongest strength of schedule playing a top 21 team from the ACC and maybe a really good group of 5 school. And even then, I think Notre Dame would still give the double birds to the Big Ten, SEC, ACC, and Big 12 and say, we don't care. This is really important to us. And it might be really important to them because they might be the only ones who can still pull this off in 2024. What do you think? Is there a school that I didn't mention that you think could be an independent and could make it? Like, is Stanford in that list? Is Stanford or Cal, do they value their academic prestige so much that they would be willing to say, you know what, to hell with the ACC if this doesn't work, or if the ACC implodes like the Pac-12 did? Want to hear from you. Appreciate your thoughts in the comments down below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. Goes a long way in helping out the channel. See you Sunday for another episode of the Daily Huddle.